rising, family, grand rising. I hope all is well. Happy Tuesday. Second to last week of June. Also, I wanted to say welcome to the channel if this is your first time. I am Miss B, Bohemian Soul. Welcome to HGW, which stands for Homegrown Wellness Community 72. If this video you find at the end resonates with you, if it is something that you can be encouraged from, helps you out in life, please share this video with someone. Again, if you are new to the channel, please hit that like button, subscribe button, and share, and I would greatly appreciate it. And if you are not new to the channel, welcome back. So we all know Father's Day was Sunday, 2 days ago, and I was thinking about doing this on Father's Day, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's going to be kind of messed up. And not that this is going to be a negative connotation to dads or fathers, not at all, but you know, this video is going to talk to the importance of good dads, good fathers in a girl's life, and just the importance of having a great relationship and building a secure relationship with your daughter. And I'm speaking to that because obviously I am a daughter, and I have learned some lessons looking back on ways in which my relationship as a girl with my dad has shaped me into the young woman that I once was, and the woman that I am now. So we do hear a lot about the importance of dads in their sons' lives, right? But I don't think we've heard a lot about the importance of a great dad or father in their daughter's life. So my dad, I will say, was the best dad that he knew how to be. And I say that because my father did not know his dad. He didn't know his mother. His mom, my grandmother, actually passed at childbirth, and my father was conceived through an affair. My grandmother was a young woman in college in North Carolina. She was going to school. She was going to college to become a legal secretary, which was huge. My father was born in 1944, so she got pregnant with my dad when she was 19. Had him when she was 20, and my grandfather was married. He was an older man. He was in his 30s when him and my grandmother had my dad. And my father, just giving a little bit of back history on why my dad was the best dad he knew how to be from me, his daughter. And so my dad actually did not know who his father was until he was in his early 60s. My father worked for Connecticut Transit, or drove city buses in Connecticut Transit, and he lost his wallet, so he had to send away for his birth certificate. My dad was from North Carolina, but he was born in Detroit, Michigan. We have family in Detroit, Michigan, because you know, back in the day when a young woman got pregnant, she wasn't married, and then especially my grandma got pregnant by a married man. they sent her away. So they sent her to Detroit, Michigan. She was ill, didn't get the prenatal care that she needed, and she ended up succumbing to pneumonia, giving birth to my dad. But anyhow, so my dad ended up having to send away for his birth certificate when he lost his wallet, and so he had to get a new driver's license. He had to send away for his birth certificate. So he knew that he was born in Detroit. He sent away to the town, and his new birth certificate came back. Now, mind you, my dad was, because this was in 08. So my dad was 62 when he found out who his father was. So it came back, and it had his father's name and age on it, his birth certificate. And so my father now had a name, to go with his dad, whom, everybody obviously in the town in which he grew up in knew who my grandfather was, but they didn't speak of it. So that experience in life, having been raised by his aunt and uncle, his grandmother's brother and wife raised my father, because my dad's biological grandmother didn't want to raise him. One, because he was dark in complexion, and everyone else in the family was fairer in complexion. So, and there was a stain, I guess, on his conception. So she didn't want to raise him. So her brother, my dad's great uncle, and his wife raised my father, hence shaping my dad into the dad that he became. So my father and mother, they were only 8 months apart, same age. So they had me at 27. My mom was actually older than my dad a couple of months, and they had me at 27. And my parents decided to get married when they found out that they were pregnant with me. My brother's 5.5 years older than I. And so when my parents got pregnant with my brother, they didn't get married. But my father said that when he realized, when my mom told him that she was pregnant with me, he proposed to her. Here is my dad wanting to do the honorable thing, even though his father did not. But he had a great example. His great uncle and aunt who raised him were married. John Fawcett was my great uncle's name. Or yes. So young man got married. My dad had a lot of anger and a lot of issues. One of the biggest issues I would definitely say that my father had was dealing with the spirit of rejection. Rejected, in a sense, by his father, right? Grandmother didn't want him because of his complexion and the way in which he was received. So he had a lot of strikes against him, as a young man. And hence him and my mom were married for 19 years. And I think my father has transitioned. So, I did ask him certain questions about what it was like being a young father, being married to my mom, raising my brother and me. You know, I got little glimpses of why he became the dad that he became to my brother and I, why he was the husband that he was to my mom. And so my father was, again, the best dad that he could be. However, he was, in today's terms, I guess, would be have been considered a narcissist. You know, he lied when he didn't have to lie. And I, you know, I was that bright little girl. Like, I caught on to that. You know, I would listen to their arguments. My father became very, or was, I should say, very abusive. From the rip, he was very emotionally abusive to my mother, physically abusive to my mother. I remember the first time seeing my dad and my mom getting into a physical altercation, and I was 6. I was 5, because we hadn't moved to the town in which I really grew up in, which was Bloomfield, Connecticut. We were still living in our home in Hartford. Now, my dad was an excellent provider. I did grow up as a girl seeing that. He was a great provider. He always, you know, he used to, the first job that I remember my dad having prior to retiring from the city bus, he drove for Trailways, and Greyhound. And he, you know, it took him away from, he would be away from home a lot. And my mom worked at Pratt & Whitney. So my mom, you know, worked there all of my life. So my dad was a great provider. And I remember him saying he wanted to not be away from the house so much. So he had applied for the city bus. And he was able to attain that job. And, you know, my father took my brother and I fishing. And he would bait my line because it grossed me out. I'm talking about the importance of a dad in a young girl's life. My father was, every day of my life, up until, that's my wipers, is raining here. Up until my parents' divorce, my father was there, except for the weekends that he stayed out. So, you know, there was obviously a lot of adultery. My father, you know, was an adulterer. And so, like, on the weekends, he would, you know, he would go out Friday nights, but come home, be home. My mom worked second shift, so he would come home usually after my mother got home from work. So my mom would get home like 12:30 a.m. And, but then, you know, Saturday mornings, always woke up Saturday mornings, mom was cooking breakfast. You know, if it was the summertime, we did yard work as a family. My dad was a great gardener. I remember seeing that he was a great gardener. He was very handy around the house. And, you know, of course, Saturday mornings, you know, we would be cleaning the house as well. And, you know, my dad loved muscle cars, American made, you know, muscle cars. And so my parents always had 3 vehicles. My mother had her vehicle, my dad had his vehicle, usually a pickup truck, and then he had his play vehicle that he would be tinkering with, which was usually some type of American muscle car. And he would call me, of course, obviously my brother, but he would have me come into the garage with him, usually on Saturdays, after we've done our chores and things like that. And, show me how to change the oil, and show me how to change a tire, and show me how to do spark plugs, how to change a spark plug. My father also, I grew up seeing my father. So there used to be, it's now called Six Flags, but it used to be a place called Riverside Park in Massachusetts. And my father used to race cars. And, you know, I grew up with us going to the tracks. And so, you know, my father would always tell me, like, you're a pretty girl, Tanya. And so, but, I want to make sure that, if because you're going to start driving, as soon as you can. And I did. I was driving a vehicle when I was tall enough to see over the dashboard and touch the pedals. And he taught me. He would sit me in my lap and taught me how to drive, things like that. So I grew up with my dad teaching me a lot of life lessons. And he shaped me into being a very independent girl that would become a woman. Even though he was abusive to my mom. And I would say that he was abusive emotionally to my brother and I, because, he would say these harsh things and, to my mother in front of us. But at the end of it all, my dad was a great dad. He was a great dad. He poured into me using the vehicles and working on the vehicles and things like that to be a very solid, independent woman. Even though he never specifically said, I don't want you to ever have to depend on a man. He showed me ways in which if a man wasn't present in my life, I would still be able to take care of things. He taught me how to garden. My father taught me how to cook breakfast. My mother was an excellent cook, but my dad would, bring me in the kitchen. So my dad was a really good cook too. And he taught me how to make specific dishes. So my mother was a Geechee from Georgetown, South Carolina. My dad grew up in Goldsboro, North Carolina. And my father, one of his great dishes that he used to prepare, that only he and I liked, was oyster soup. Showed me how to, get those 3 canned diamond oysters, and how to make this oyster soup, and it was delicious. Now my brother and my mom did not like it. My father taught me how to make a Western omelet. Back then, growing up in a Southern household, I ate pork. I don't eat pork now. Stopped eating pork when I turned 16. That's neither here nor there. So, he taught me how to make a Western omelet and how to dice up the ham. It was a slab of ham, and how to dice it up, and the onions and the peppers, and, and there were things that, there were areas in life that he showed up for 100%. And I remember, though, the day I told him, I said, Dad? He said, okay, so I'm going to share this with y'all. He had a nickname for me. Well, he had two. He either would call me Bucky or he would call me Scooter Buck, right? Either or. And he'd be like, yeah. He's like, yeah, Buck. I said, Dad, I said, I'm going to join the Marines. And he said, oh, no, you're not. I said, what are you talking about? Yeah, yes, I am. Because he raised me to be a very strong-willed, independent young woman. And he said, oh, no, you're not. I said, well, yes, I am. And, at this point, him and my mom had been divorced years. They divorced when I was 12. So they had been divorced 5-6 years. And he said, well, that's going to be too hard. And I said, for who? Now, this is also the man who, when I was like maybe 10 years old, I told him that I wanted to be a truck driver. And he was okay with that, and he was like, you got to make sure you carry, weapon and stuff like that. And, I wanted a Peterbilt. My father showed me all of these things, and he was good with that. And, but when I told him I wanted to go into the Marines, which I did, he was like, no, that's going to be too hard. And I said, how could you tell me that that's going to be too hard? Because, he said, well, you're a girl, and that's going to be too hard. And I said, Dad, you've shown me in life that anything that I choose to do, and a lot of things that my father taught me was male dominant areas, I would say, in life, and showed me and taught me that I could do those things. So I did go into the Marine Corps. He was, I think, probably more proud, when I had my blood stripe on, graduated. I think my dress blues, I think he was prouder than my mom. So the importance of a dad in a girl's life is above and beyond that I can express. My father, I would say, was not the best role model as a husband of what a husband should be. That he was not. But that of a father, he showed up 100%. And so for all the women that may feel like their fathers just were not the ideal dad in their thought process of what a father should be, I would just say, look at the ways in which your dad did show up and draw from that, glean from that. And so he really shaped me, or had a major hand in shaping me and being the woman that I am today. So today, even though it's days after Father's Day, I really honor and I salute my dad, and him doing the best that he knew how to do with what he was given. And he wasn't given a lot. So that's it. This is more personal, but I definitely wanted to talk to the importance of a father in a girl's life. Family, listen, remember, be great to yourself because you are great. Be great to your family. They deserve your greatness. Be great to your community.